Welcome everyone to another episode of the Greyhorn Pagans Podcasts in a much different environment than you may be used to. I'm currently here with my good friend and amazing guest, Matt, and we are actually at the Jung Library in the Embassy of the Free Mind in the somewhat amazing city of Amsterdam. So, first of all, thank you to the embassy for letting us record here. This is actually my first time recording in person, so this
Gonna be a fun one.
yeah. Let's see how this is gonna go. And since we are in the Jung Library, I thought we'd have a bit of a discussion about Jung, since you are like a Kabbalist. I'm, of course, a heathen. I thought it'd be a good topic since it really connects to both.
Oh yeah, most definitely connects to many things. We'll get into it, but it was a good synthesis that he did, that started also the works of then psychology and a lot of stuff that we know nowadays. So,
So where should we start? What do you like? You have made hella notes.
Yes,
I started preparing yesterday.
Yeah, I did some notes here. So maybe what we can do is get one of the few more interesting topics that he talked about and try to double on that.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I guess one of the most interesting ones, for me at least, is the idea of synchronicities that he liked to talk about.
Yep.
And I'll give a description for those who never heard of a description of it, which I went through someone that actually studied Jung for a long time. So it's not me saying, it's that person's as well. So let's go. So synchronicities, phenomena in which an external event meaningfully coincides with an internal state without a casual relationship. For Jung, they review the a-casual order of the collective unconscious and function as crossing points between the psyche and world.
Yeah.
So that's the idea. Now, I don't know about you personally, but I've had so many of those, especially after I understood what they are. It was easier to perceive how they're happening. May I give like one example?
Yeah, please do.
Right. So, as you know, I study Kabbalah, and it's, a study of the symbols, right? Some of those might also be in what he mentions, the collective unconscious, which we can get into eventually. But
sure.
In many situations, ever since I started those, they run weekly, the classes. And it was so funny that, for example, once I was supposed to have a class on the strength card, which is one of the arcana. And if you check up the image, it's going to be a woman, like in some tarot decks, it's going to be a woman opening the mouth of a lion. So that means she's using the strength, but not necessarily the physical one. It's like the mental one. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The point is, the night before the class, I've actually dreamt that I was with a lot of cats around me. And then I got one of them and did the same idea. Like, it opened his mouth with my hands. And when I woke up, I was like, what the hell is this about? Like, well, this dream is so weird. But then later in the day, I had the class about the strength card, which I've never seen before. Like, I was getting initiated into Kabbalah. And to me, that was like, wow, like how this happens. To me, that was this kind of a casual relationship that, man, how would I have a dream about that? And then the relation. So if you pay attention, even in smaller things, you can start seeing those, and they kind of help you get into those deepest parts of the psyche as well. And it's a very interesting phenomena.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I had made some notes on that as well. I'm trying to find what they are, where they are. But yeah, there is synchronicities. There is a definite connection with heathenry as well. I'm trying to. Oh man, I know I should have made better notes.
I know, for example, in Kabbalah, the way we understand it is that there's definitely something running under reality, right? It's not that it may seem that there's not a correlation, let's say, but there kind of is. So it's kind of like the script playing out, and you're being able to see the script being played out. So it's kind of this idea of, there's this external thing happening, which for Kabbalah, there's not really an external. Everything is the same, like in the same environment. But then when you perceive it as an external thing, you can catch it. That's the idea. Like if it's on your unconscious, then you cannot really understand it. But when you see it outside of you, it's like, oh, cool, I get it. Now I can do something about it. There's this kind of play.
From the top of my head, like that really connects to the Wotanic spirit. Of course, he has the gift of vision. I mean, I'm calling it a gift, but he had to literally sacrifice an eye for it in the Well of Mimir. And when you were talking about the lady like opening the lion's mouth, my mind went to Tiwaz and Fenris wolf, who, according to the mythologies, at least, unfortunately got betrayed by the gods because Wotan had this vision of Fenris wolf, however you want to call him, however you want to call the archetype, which we'll get into in a moment. Being the catalyst that starts Ragnarok. And since it was Tiwaz who raised Fenrir from when he was a pup, he was the only one, Tyr was the only one that Fenrir trusted. So Tyr said, you know what? I know you don't trust the gods for good reason. So, I'll put my hand in your mouth. And, if you are indeed betrayed, as a form of punishment, as a form of retribution, you can bite off my hand.
Kind of like
which
a vote of
is also
confidence.
kind of, going again into foresight, because Tyr knew very well that the gods were unfortunately going to betray Fenrir. So it was like foresight, and then
the thing happening.
Punishments, really.
Yeah. So, maybe let's go into the collective unconscious, and then we can go into the archetypes, which it's super nice what you just talked about. We'll connect to it. Also, the Wotanic spirit that you mentioned, Jung did go into a lot of times.
I would imagine so, him being of German descent.
Yeah.
Botanic spirits like roams through Germany, through the Germanic countries.
The way he would explain it kind of is this idea of a collective archetype of the Germanic people. So it would be kind of this thing in Kabbalah, we can call it like an egregore of the people and the way they work. So again, let's maybe try to explain the idea of unconscious. So the description that I have here, we have a psychic layer outside consciousness. It has two levels: the personal, that could be memories, traumas, complexes, and the collective. So the collective unconscious that we talked about in the synchronicities.
Yeah.
Those would have the archetypes, the universal structures. For Jung, the unconscious compensates consciousness. It returns what consciousness rejects in order to restore balance. And balance, also, it's a very interesting idea that there's a word for it. I'll try to name it, but I'll probably butcher it. Enantiodromia. So it's this idea that there's going to be homeostasis, there's going to be balance, and that's how the psyche kind of works. Whatever you don't work consciously goes kind of under the rug in the unconscious. That's how, again, the idea will play it out. And then definitely, we can see it just as we talked about, the archetypes would be part of the unconscious.
Got the book here.
Yes.
I'm starting to read it, but it's in a few days. I'm not a speed reader, unfortunately.
But exactly. But it's already from the image you can capture a lot of stuff. Like Jung was also a lot into the mandalas. We can try to get into it if we have time. But
it reminds me of the Vesica Pisces as well. The female reproductive organs. It has that shape, the star.
Yep.
Be the exact right place.
Exactly. And the idea of the collective unconscious then containing the archetypes, which you were just talking about, like there's the whole history of Wotan and then Fenrir and everything like this comes and kind of stays into the collective unconscious, which there's going to be an overall for like the whole humanity one, which maybe Jung will call like the great mother or this or that. There's going to be the archetypes, which again in Kabbalah you have the spheres which you can connect to. So dark mother, great mother would be Binah, for example, you could say. So then a lot of myths and stories will have that type of character being played out, even if they are not from the same place, even if they didn't know each other, like people from Germany or the north of Europe and some other people in like South America, they'll have like similar things. So that's the archetype would be, as the name suggests, an arc, so a primordial type. So it's something that comes even before we conceive myths and so on. So it's like a filter also for how we talk about stories. So
and like that you kind of mentioned it already, but like just today on my way here, I was listening to some more stuff about it, reading up a bit, and I don't know where it was from exactly, but it said pertaining to the archetypes, like that is why like the Mesopotamian, the Greek, the Norse mythos lines up so much. Take the Greek story of Persephone, for example, in the Norse Germanic mythology. That is the story of Balder. I believe it's quite recently actually that they found like clay tablets from Mesopotamia, portraying a similar story with, their gods, of course. And that's because it is something that is in the unconscious. It is an archetype. It is, I'm not sure if that's like even an archetype, but it's the cycles of life, the cycles of nature. It's something that we can see. It's something visual, it's the, nature kind of dying in the winter, especially here in Northern Europe. Whenever it gets cold, like everything fucking dies off. And then by springtime, everything, becomes anew. So you could say that is life, going into the underworld. It's like, quite literally keeping all the nutrients in the bottom to, feed itself in the very cold weather. And then when the sun, the bringer of life, the giver of light, of warmth, is, coming back at its, in its power, which starts, of course, at the winter equinox around the 21st of December. Not exactly the 21st, but like around the 21st is when the sun,
the mighty sun,
returns. So like we've literally seen that forever, for as long as mankind or whatever kind of species we were before has had the power of vision and conscious thought.
And it's very interesting that you mentioned this idea of cycles, which, if we read the thing here, also says that the collective unconscious would be the archetypes and the universal structures. So again, the structure that kind of creates the universe, that maintains it. And that idea of cycles is also, Jung talked about it. I don't remember which of the collected works, but this idea of the kind of Age of Aquarius kind of thing. I don't remember the exact name that he gave it. I think it was even Age of Pisces Aquarius, like he was talking about it in this astrological sense already. But anyways, this idea that there's always a cycle of consciousness even. So, I mean, if we go back a few hundreds of years or thousands of years, humanity was very different. Like maybe we would be too much into farming and kind of developing the structure of life. And then we got into wars and making sure, like, I have the power over this place and so on. Then we got over religion, which is, again, Pisces and so on. And now we're getting into technology and everything's kind of changing. And it's kind of going into religion as well. Like, AI, it's for a lot of people, it's becoming somewhat of a religion. Exactly. There's always going to be, but also the idea is that it becomes more about what you know than some kind of mystic, like Pisces, like mystic. Oh yeah, you do. You need to go to the church and see it, and you kind of don't know everything. You have to believe it. It's a lot of faith. But now it's, no, you literally, you go to the AI, you ask everything, and well, you think you know sometimes, but that's the idea. That's the emotion that you're getting, right? That you know it.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense that this, again, is connected. It kind of shifts how everyone from that era thinks, right? Because, I mean, people from the age of, if you want to say Taurus, that they didn't have internet and whatever, they obviously would think at least slightly different, maybe a lot different, but at least slightly different, because you don't have the symbols to play with. And that's one of the things that Jung also dabbled into, this idea of like symbols and the mandalas that he would draw and so on. And again, to help get what's in here, what's inside out, so you can observe and transmute a lot into, like, he went a lot into alchemy and so on, a lot of things. So
yeah. And, you know, cycles, we've all, you know, heard like, oh, you know, it's the apocalypse, it's the Kali Yuga, in Germanic heathenry, that would be Ragnarok, of course, which we kind of talked about when we had, you know, coffee and breakfast. And I love that Jung actually portrays Ragnarok as one of the archetypes, because it's not the end of the world. I mean, it is in a way, but like not in the destruction of the world, but it's the end of the, I've translated it as the end of the ancient order, the end of the old order. It is a psychic transformation. So it is, I mean, it is kind of the end of the world as we know it.
Exactly.
I mean, like how many people have you heard that, you know, like even, let's say pre-COVID, like that was a different world. Yeah. Like it was, humanity was different. Society was different. We thought different. We did different. Yeah. So yeah, this is Ragnarok. This is the apocalypse. This is the Kali Yuga. This is the end of an old age. It is the, you know, the end of an old establishment, an old order.
Exactly. And what makes space for the new as well, because you cannot maintain everything the same and expect the new things come out of it, because you already have the structure. So literally, like you said, you have to destroy it to build up again. Like the Hindus will talk about the three parts of God, you know, the Brahma, the Vishnu, and the Shiva, and Shiva would have that strength of destroying everything, destroying the illusions as well, so that you can create what's true, what's real, what's better, and whatever you want to name it. So it's a very interesting topic that, again, there's always these constant cycles, and as we know, as above, so below. So as there are cycles outside, astrological cycles, collective cycles, there are internal cycles, which is what also Jung will kind of try to connect, even if not explicitly, that's how we are going to work. So there's this whole idea of going, and he'll talk about individualization. So becoming, you know, aware of the thing that he'll call the self, which I'll be able to describe here. Sure. So self would be the center and the totality of the psyche, not the ego, but the hidden organizer that guides individuation. As the center of the totality of the being, it encompasses both the conscious and the unconscious. The ego, by contrast, is the center of consciousness. The self appears in symbols of wholeness, mandalas, light, defined figures, and so on. If we want to connect to Kabbalah, if we are talking about it being the center of the thing, you could say that it is actually the whole tree. So all the spheres, all the paths, and so on. But it can become something, it can become a figure that you watch in Tiferet. Like you were saying, the solar archetype, the sun. So this idea of the God becoming man and so on. So again, this trying to reduce the total into something that you can even comprehend, because, I mean, this process of, in Kabbalah, we'll talk about the path of the serpent. I think it even connects a little bit with Ragnarok, the serpent coming and destroying everything.
Yeah.
So
we know multiple serpents.
Yeah.
And we have at least two. There should be a third one.
Yeah, there's
but I know of at least two.
Yeah, there's the idea of the Kundalini as well coming up and restoring everything. So the idea is that you are quite literally going up and destroying what's not there to be able to see what's in there. So again, this idea of individualization, so becoming whole, becoming aware of everything, you have to destroy also what he'll talk about as the shadow, right? So again, this idea of going up and trying to become aware of all the points that you have within yourself, which you have to confront, right? If I want to understand myself, I'll have to see parts that were, again, in this shadow, in this area that maybe I didn't want to look. Like, oh yeah, let's say someone lies sometimes or is, guilty of whatever thing that they might think they're guilty of, and you kind of just put it under the rug, which, again, you cannot escape from it. So it becomes the unconscious, which we can say it's even more powerful because you cannot see it. So it becomes like it drives you into doing things because you're not being aware.
Yeah. No, it's funny. Like you mentioned the self, the shadow, integrating, destroying each other. Jung was, of course, a student of Nietzsche, or a big admirer of the work of Nietzsche. Nietzsche, one of his most famous works or quotes, whatever it is, of course, God is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, good and evil become the same thing, or, become one.
Yep.
And we were talking about the serpent and the serpent rising up. It reminds me of one of the parts of Ragnarok, of course, where the giant snake Jormungandr, the Ouroboros, a child of Loki, so literally a child of chaos, defeats, poisons, really, Thor, who is the hero protector archetype. But they both perish in that fight. It is a mutual destruction. It is Jormungandr who goes first, so the shadow collapses first, but because of the hero, because of the light, the self, will already having been poisoned, eventually it dies as well, leaving nothing really, but at the same time, leaving room to be built up again. And the very first cycle of chaos, you could say, goes back to when Wotan, Vili, and Ve killed Ymir, the frost giant, from his body created the world as we know it. That was the very first the end of the very first cycle and the beginning of the second cycle, if you will. But it was through chaos, that where a new order came into being. For all you conspiracy theorists, new world order, if you will.
Yeah. No, it's very nice that you mentioned that, because again, in Kabbalah, the path of the serpent is going down, up. There's also the path up, down, which is the path of lightning, the lightning path, or the flaming sword, which quite literally explains it the same way. You have Kether, so the unity, the only thing that, the first emanation, let's say, from the being, which becomes first Chokhmah, which would be this chaos, this expansion, maybe the way we can talk about it. And then it becomes Binah, which is the contraction, the order. So only from the chaos can the order come if we are going down into creation. Up is going to be the other way, because again, so if first there's nothing and then there's something, now you need this something to expand so you can contract it into a thing that you can understand. Let's say if you want to build a car, you need first the image of the car, like all the ideas that you have about the car, but then you need to put it into a blueprint, into something that you can actually do. Like you need to order that, all those crazy everything ideas that you have, into something that you can actually create. Again, this is coming top down. So, but then going up, so again, you come into this kind of chaotic, you have to destroy. In Kabbalah, we can say the klifas, so the klifot. Those would be the hidden parts, or the husks of the spheres, the part that we kind of let out, right? Which doesn't have to be bad, by the way. So the shadow, as the description I have here, is everything the ego does not want to admit. Desires, impulses, hostilities, repressed talents. It is not only negative, it is the gateway to vitality and raw truth. Confronting the shadow is the first step of real development. So again, the idea of maybe you are in a job and your actual desire, like a specific job, and your actual desire is to do something else, maybe another type of job or another thing, and you repress that, you put that into the shadow. So that's not a bad thing that you want to do that job. But because it is in the shadow, how can you confront your whole being? How can you be true to yourself and do the process of individualization.
And it is Jung
Individuation, sorry.
said, who doesn't acknowledge the shadow will be possessed by it.
Exactly.
And that is, I mean, it's absolutely true, you know, and also, yeah, no, that, I mean, kind of ties into the whole new age, like love and light thing. Like they do not acknowledge their shadow side, or they feel like they have conquered the shadow side. It's mostly just about ignoring it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, they get absolutely possessed by it, obsessed, because, you know, yeah, I mean, I can speak from experience, unfortunately, or fortunately, because it definitely taught me a lot of lessons.
Yeah.
You still see the shadow side of things, but you like actively ignore it, you know, causing a great deal of energy. You really have to, fool yourself into believing, like you're trying to, I guess, kind of manifest. It's manifest is not the right term, but like you are actively trying to just see and acknowledge the light, because if you don't acknowledge the darkness, if you don't acknowledge the shadow, then it has no power over you. But my wife, the lovely Firefaya, she has taught me. She's kind of Jungian in that way as well. I'm not sure if she actually realizes that. I'll have to tell her that by ignoring it, you're giving it power. By mentioning it, by bringing it up, by talking about it, you're actually taking away the strength, because you're acknowledging it. And for, you know, quite a while, you know, I myself was in the understanding, or tried to fool myself into the understanding that if I do talk about it, if I do acknowledge it, I am feeding it. Which, I mean, caused quite a mental collapse, because eventually it all caught up with me. And I had to acknowledge it.
Yeah. And what you mentioned, again, we can see it in Kabbalah very clearly. The idea that there are the demons. So again, demon, not an external thing, but the idea, this husk, this thing that kind of harms you, that doesn't do you good necessarily. So it's not bad, but it's not for your highest being, and you can dominate them by knowing their names. So you need to know their name to be able to control them, because people will try to use it, like maybe in Goesh or whatever, like any practice that works with those kind of ideas. So exactly. Yeah. But if you remove the mysticism from it, if you know your demon is, let's say, again, lying, right? If you name it, oh, I'm lying, then you know how to deal with that. You know, okay, then I won't lie, you know, because like you said, it requires energy. When you lie, you have to keep up with the structures and so on. You
have to remember the lie.
Exactly.
The lie, you know, the way you first told it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people are going to notice the changes, and they're going to notice that you're lying.
Yeah. Yeah. The same with like being lazy or something. Like you have to keep up with this idea that, oh, I cannot do stuff because I'm lazy. But at the same time, you know, you're creating the laziness for something. So it's something you have to actively work with. Let's say you have to maintain it. So,
and it's even, man, 33 years old, and I've lived a life already. But it's the same with addiction.
Yeah.
I have struggled with addiction in the past. I've been addicted to weed. For everyone who says like you can't get addicted to marijuana, yes, you can.
Yeah, nice way to rationalize it, right? Oh yeah, I can quit whenever I want. I just don't want to quit.
How many times I've said that? Yeah, I can quit whenever the fuck I want. Not me being at the coffee shop at 11 a.m. in the morning. You know, in another town, because that one opens at like 9 a.m. But no, I've got it under control. Yeah, working myself into debt and whatever. But it's like, everyone always says with addictions, like the first step to healing is acknowledging that you have an addiction, acknowledging that you have a problem, acknowledging the shadow, if you will. And only by acknowledging the shadow, you can work on, well, integrating the shadow, accepting
Yeah,
the shadow,
that you
and
have
then
it. Yeah.
working towards towards the light, to overcoming your shadow. And that does not mean killing the shadow. That does
Yep.
not mean killing your ego. There is no such thing. You integrate it, you accept it,
You work
and
with it.
Yeah, and that's the only way to heal.
Yep. Yeah. And again, what you were talking about, the idea of addictions, I've had the blessing, I guess, to help some people out of it with this exact process. So, the person would have addiction to eat, addiction to smoking, addiction to eating, whatever it is. And the first step is, again, asking yourself, like, where this comes from. It could be, because when you were young, you had some kind of event that traumatized you. A lot of times this will come up. Like, it's going to be because of your father, quote unquote, because of father, mother, grandma, whatever. And this will keep up. But the deeper you go, the deeper you realize where this is actually coming from. And then you can decide to transmute it. Sometimes it will even be multiple things. Like, I've did the work with other people because I did it first with myself. And I've had this happen, well, not exactly an addiction, but something that I wanted to work on. And I needed to do the same technique quite sometimes, because every time something else would come up that kind of fed into that problem. So if you don't kind of skim through everything, again, this process of individuation that Jung will talk about, you kind of get it into control. And maybe I can describe as well, because I don't think we described the process.
Sure.
So it says here, individuation, the process by which the ego becomes conscious of the psychic totality, integrating, like you said, shadow, anima, and animus, which we can get into, and opposites. It's not perfection, but integration and centeredness. It is guided by the self and symbolized by death, rebirth, conuncio, mandalas. It is the work of a lifetime. So definitely not doing it in one lifetime if you don't have the tools and so on. You can get a little bit, let's see. But again, this alchemical idea also of, burning the thing and then getting it up and all this connections. So it is very, very potent.
Yeah.
When you realize that you have the power over yourself. So like Stein was saying, you have to recognize it first, that you have it. And then the technique, the one that I'm mentioning that I help with people with, is actually super simple. Like, you need to ask yourself, because it is deep in you, the reasons, but you are deciding not to see them. When you do decide to shed light on those, they come up and you can work with them. You can do whatever you so desire, and then you see the results, obviously, of what you do. But I guess something else we can talk about is this idea of anima and animus that I just mentioned happens in the process of individuation as well. So, anima and animus, inner images of the opposite sex expressing the bridge between ego and unconscious. The anima in men would be the emotion, eros, relationship, imaginal intuition. The animus in woman would be the logos, opinion, structuring reason. They mediate the relationship with the unconscious and appear in dreams as seductive, hostile, or guiding figures. When projected onto real people, idealization, fascination, blind love, conflicts. Let's synthesize it. Yin and yang. So if you see the symbol of yin and yang, you're going to see that inside the great yin, there's a small yang. Inside the great yang, there's a small yin. So you cannot work without both. Again, the Hermetic principle that there are both genders, and you need both to work. You need, as a man, to know when to be passive, when to be, receptive, when to get stuff. And as a woman, you need to know when to be active, when to direct things, when to order and reason about it, and so on. Otherwise, again, you're not whole. You're going to be half a person. Yeah. So there's this idea as well in Kabbalah that basically the primordial Adam, the Adam Kadmon, the first emanation, whatever, the first creation, was actually, again, a whole being. This idea of, again, hermaphrodite, the son of Hermes and Aphrodite, being this both. So, but then he was separated into two things, into a man and a woman, let's say, into two genders. And then now they're kind of bound to go by life trying to find your soulmate, your other half. Again, this is all symbolic, not literal, for you to become whole again. And
it's fascinating. Like, speaking of synchronicities, like I was just like a few days ago talking about this over Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name, but from Project Eleazar, with whom I have done a show. Great guy. But we were talking about heathenism.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to know some things. He wanted to have a bit of clarification, and it was like you were talking about a hermaphroditic being. That was Ymir. That was the very first ice giant, the first primordial giant who came to be out of the melting ice droplets of the primordial realm of fire, Muspelheim, and the primordial realm of ice and darkness, Niflheim, who came together in Ginnungagap, in the void, in the Vesica Pisces. And he reproduced asexually to birth the very first man and woman from his sweat, actually. So again, droplets. He came out of like droplets, and then from droplets from him came another being.
Again, we could keep connecting the ideas. So in Kabbalah, the void, the ayin, the first thing, nothingness, right? It becomes or like the whole thing, then which is nothing, becomes this even more nothing, which then becomes something, and so on. It kind of is the same process up until the first world. There are 4 worlds, each connected to an element, and the first one, again, the fire word, where it would be where the archetypes live. Again, the primordial types, the ideas that we have. Everything in the idea world is perfect, right? It's great, and it has to come and densify itself to come here, which will come with its limitations, because again, here the material realm is limited, but that's where they all live first, and which I think Plato will talk about also before Jung, Plato or Socrates. Now I won't remember exactly which one. I think Plato. But anyways, this idea of the primordial type, this thing that gives birth to the actual thing that we see and touch and have the senses with. So very nice how it all connects, like the words and the topics.
And you have sent that whole list to me. I'm reading over the conversation again, and Jung also talked about the Gnostics, like the Gnostic god Abraxas. And it's funny, like what I'm reading here, and I totally forgot about that. So I wanna get his name right. Anyway, Project Eleazar. I'll get your name eventually. Thank you for asking those questions. Really, Abraxas was a 7-headed being, 7-headed being. But it was from Ymir, actually, from the union of his legs, that a 6-headed sun was created.
Right.
So
and then right.
So, and it was they were the very first frost giants, the very first cold, like very cold beings, and one of the very first like ancient archetypes, and the ones that Wotan he promised to slay, like he would rid the world of the frost giants. So basically he would rid the world of this coldness, this blackness.
Yep. And then you go into theogony from the Greek, and then you have Zeus going after the Titans and everything. So it comes up over and over.
Was that again? Multi-headed.
The Hydra.
The Hydra.
Yeah. The 12 works of Hercules. Yeah.
And Heracles basically being Donar as well. Zeus and Heracles, it's kind of Donar and Wotan. They're in my mind, they're kind of
they touch up similar.
Yeah.
They touch up similar archetypes. Yeah, most definitely. And again, Jung was very into Gnostic and alchemy, and like you mentioned it, I think it's in the end of the Red Book that he mentions Abraxas. So there's this 7 sermons of the dead. So Abraxas, a figure from the Gnostic text, 7 sermons of the dead, which Jung considered to have arisen from his unconscious. Abraxas symbolizes the force that unites opposites, God and devil, light and darkness, creation and destruction. It names the undifferentiated power prior to morality, an absolute energy that includes everything. It is a pre-self, or the self in its most primordial and paradoxical form. Again, the idea of Ein Sof.
I mean, yeah, those sound like the frost giants. That sounds like Ymir. They were the very first beings. They were, they were nor good nor evil. They were the very first primordials, if you will.
Yeah. And again, when you connect this idea to yourself, you realize that a lot of the morals we have, a lot of the concepts that we have psychologically that sometimes even block us from doing things, like we just talked about the anima and animals. So relationships nowadays, a lot of them, people don't get it right because they have all these projected things of how it should be or how it shouldn't, and so on. When you go deep into it, it's a lot of, again, things you created. Like, you create the problems and then you complain that there are problems because you are trying to play a game that doesn't make any sense, right? So when you go out of this, when you kind of step aside from this character, this ego, not to, again, like you said, not to kill it, but just to understand, what is this little creature trying to do? Like, oh, okay, it's trying to do this, this, and that. Yeah. Let's kind of organize it. Let's point it to a better objective with a better system so that you can, continue life. And it's very interesting in the Red Book. He goes into a lot of this idea of like the devil and the ego, and how, again, if I'm talking Kabbalah, it's going to be very Gevuradic. So trying to work with those conflicts, and you start to understand how this becomes, it gets power because people give it power. So even if you go into the Bible, there's not really an idea of the devil, like especially if you go into the Jewish Bible, so the Torah and so on. There's not really a thing in the New Testament. Maybe if you want to conjecture on top of it, you can connect some stuff. But again, because people created it, then it becomes powerful. Then it becomes something that controls your life. Oh, I'm not going to do this because the devil will do whatever, or because this is demonic and so on. But then you must ask yourself, well, if one such thing exists and it has power, like how does the other guy then doesn't have power over it? So then it becomes this dualistic, oh, so the devil can do some stuff, but is it because God let it do or didn't? So
shadow. Yeah, I mean, that's what at least modern Christianity like kind of is. They are possessed or obsessed with the devil and his evil deeds. They have to do the exact opposites because only then they can go to heaven. And it even begs the question if the devil is or was, well, Lucifer, a fallen angel, which he wasn't. There two very distinct, very different beings, but that would make him lesser than God. He was a servant of God who became the ruler of hell, so he gained that power by himself, really. So why wouldn't why wouldn't have he any power over the devil, over
that domain,
what he does? Because that would mean that either that power is granted by God, or there is no such thing as God, which are
at least not the way it's being explained.
Exactly,
right?
Which are equally frightening thoughts.
Yeah. So it's nice that you mentioned that. The idea, well, first of all, people conflate a lot of things. Like they conflate devil with demons, with Lucifer, they again make a lot of mixture, blah, blah, blah. But let's keep it, let's come back to probably the roots where this thoughts came. So if we go to Greece, for example, they had Hades. So the hell was literally, their hell was the Hades, the underworld. Again, the unconscious, the deepest part of us and so on. So that guy, which was also a place, so he was a place and a guy, a god, let's say, he was supposed to control who stays and who doesn't, and he kind of controls, again, the underworld, where even all the treasures would be, like you mentioned Persephone, right? She gets raptured by him and then becomes like the queen of the place and so on. But a lot of the stories, like if you go into Orpheus and his story and Psyche and Eros, their story as well. So they have to go into Hades and back. You have to go into the unconscious with the treasures and come back, because that's where all the things are. And if people are made afraid of those because they think hell is a fiery place that I cannot go and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, guess what? You're never going to get the treasures that are there, in the sense of the parts that are hidden, the parts that you can work with. You're now afraid of them. Well, you lost your power because now they control you. Like you were saying, you become possessed by those. Yeah. So very nice that you mentioned that, because then we were able to make the correlation. And another thing that he talked about a lot as well in the Red Book especially is this idea of an active imagination. So I have a description here. So a method created by Jung to consciously dialogue with the unconscious without censorship. It is not free fantasy, it is a real conversation with inner figures. Images are treated as living, and the subject responds to them. It was the foundation of the Red Book. So again, a lot of the techniques that I do in Kabbalah can work like that, because, and that's the thing, if you're not aware, you're gonna do this yourself, but in a way that doesn't support you, that doesn't help you with anything. With this, again, if we come back to the concept of the devil, you're going to create this idea that there's a devil and he's trying to, do bad things to you and so on. And you're actively imagining that. You have already the image. They give you the image, right? The horny guy, red with the spike, a trident to get you, which Hades also had, by the way. Just saying, not a copy, okay? And
Poseidon.
Yeah.
God of
and you,
the depths of the sea ruled by someone with a...
okay, yeah, exactly. We made our point. And then when you actively imagine that and give it power and talk to it and interact with it, it is controlling you. And if you put it into the power, guess what? You are going to lose the power and you're going to give it to them. Like, that's how it will work. So unless you alchemize that, again, alchemy is a thing that Jung would use a lot. Unless you alchemize that, you cannot get the control back. So it was a very important topic as well in the Red Book, which is very helpful in the day-to-day life as well, once you understand what it really means.
Yeah, no, that's why Jung lines up so beautifully with heathenism or Germanic polytheism as well. I do like this. What I found out that, and I like this duality, that Jung offers the psychological part. He offers the psychological key. Heathenism or Germanic polytheism provides the mythical body, because the gods are not made up, if you will. They are inner forces. They are, they do live within you. They are the archetypes that, you can recognize in yourself. There is no escape, as like what Buddhists have with with nirvana, for example. Like, you literally escape the darkness because you manage to escape the physical realm. Heathenry, Germanic polytheism, is also very much about integration. Like acknowledging the darkness, acknowledging the shadow, acknowledging battle, and sacrifice, because those are essential. It is, like we've been talking about the one-ton experience. That is how he got the ultimate wisdom. That is how he found or gained the knowledge and the wisdom of the runes, through the ultimate self-sacrifice. Yeah. And that is like one of the best ways to grow, going back to Ragnarok, to the end of things and rebuilding something from chaos. Like, there has to be a void of some kind before you can place something new in it. So you have to sacrifice something before you can, become better for it, be better at it, better because of it, even.
Yeah. If we go into Kabbalah, again, we'll have the 12th arcana, which will be the hanged man, the sacrifice, this idea of, even if we go into Portuguese, it's a nice thing we can do, because it's going to be called sacrifício, which we can turn into sacro ofício, so like a holy work. So instead of doing this sacrifice in the sense of, some religions or people will do like, I'll hurt myself for this, or I'll stop doing these things that I like in order to get something, this kind of invalid sacrifice. You would have a sacred, a holy work that you can do. That would be this sacrifice that you're doing, the giving and taking. Like, that's how it works. Also, after it, quite literally, have the death. So again, this idea of you have eventually to die. Parts of you have to die for you to grow up. If you're a kid, you have to die. You has to die for you to become adult. Otherwise, you become, Peter Pan. You're always a kid. And it goes over and over. Then we have the 15th arcana would be the devil. So this idea of being again in duality between doing the virtues or the vices. And it is funny also that it stays between Yesod and Tiferet. And it's in the system that I use. So it's the perception trying to go into the bright part of us, the idea of the self contained into one thing. So Tiferet, the sun. And again, you have that in that place. So it kind of blocking you from going straight across because you're afraid of it. You're like, oh, what should I do? And so on. And then after it, we have, again, the tower, which is about destroying the sandcastles, destroying the things that we built without foundation that doesn't help us in any way. So
the castles of the sky.
Yeah. So connects with a lot of things. And the more, again, in theory, you can speak about here about like in 3, 4, 10 hours about this.
We can be here all day.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've only reserved the Jung Library for an hour, so an hour it is. But yeah, I mean, there's so much, man. There's so much.
Yeah. One thing I think I didn't talk about was the description of the archetypes, because we talked a lot about them. We gave a slight description, but I have one here which says structuring forms of the psyche. Universal patterns of image and behavior. They are not ready-made images, but tendencies that generate images. Example, shadow, anima, self, great mother, wise old man. Again, as you have in Norse mythology a lot. The hero. They are inherited, not personal, and organize both dreams and myths. And one thing that I thought about while you were talking is this idea of, again, every country, every egregore, every group of people will have their own myths. So, like you're saying, for you and from what you know about the Norse and Germanic traditions, the battle part of it, the battle aspect, is important because, well, just think about it. If you live in the winter, like in a place that is constantly cold, you cannot really just farm and chill. You have to fight for your life, quite literally.
Yeah.
Right. So again, if you go into the Abrahamic traditions, you have this idea of people always, sacrificing and trying to escape something because they're in the desert and so on. But then you go maybe to South America, you have some guys which are a little bit different because, well, they're in a different environment. Yeah. There are going to be, again, the archetypes that structure. They're not ready. They're not going to be exactly the same. But they have a similar configuration, a similar structure, which plays out depending on where you are. If you don't understand that, you are going to be constantly living that thing over and over without control. So you're going to think, oh, I have to, a lot of people will think, oh, I have to marry and do this and da. Have you asked yourself why? Like, why do you have those thoughts? Why do I have to, have a job like this and marry like that? Blah, blah, blah. A lot of times when you go back to it, it was just put into you. Doesn't mean that they're bad, but if you don't understand them, again, you're going to be governed by those things. You're not going to have any control, any individuation. You're not going to evolve because you're just doing like a robot, what you've been told to do. And sometimes that doesn't resonate with you, at least not in the way that you've been told. Again, not anything, no shade against people that want to marry, just the idea, because you do it without thinking, and then things go wrong, and then you start to wonder, oh man, it's so bad. Why? Well, you didn't think about it before doing. Why you were doing, for what reasons, how you want to go about it.
Yeah.
And same idea with working jobs or whatever, the patterns that we see in the West, right?
And I think that, it's indeed patterns that we will often see in the West. I mean, that we both recognize the most, of course. I do wonder how much of that, the doing things because you have to do them, and really for no other reason than that, how much of that would contribute to like what we're seeing now, the rise of mental illness, the rise of, you know, male loneliness, the rise of you know, confused sexuality and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. You know, we are disconnected from ourselves, and most of us, or a lot of us, are doing things because we were taught that you are supposed to do those things. And there is really no, for, you know, for many things, for many people, there is no other reason behind that.
Yep.
And like, yeah, sometimes that can be a good thing. You know, it's also called spontaneity. Like, why did you do that? I don't know. I just felt like doing it. Then again, you know, you're doing it because you felt like doing it, so you have a reason why you're doing it.
A hidden one, yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, may not be the best reason, but you know, it'll get you places. It'll get you, you know, into the freaking Jung Library. It's like, hey, you know, we've been here. Fuck, was it September?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
And like we both like absolutely fucking loved it, and the library, like the main library, few doors down, 3 doors down. No, that would be too great of a joke. But like it is absolutely awesome, and like it is such a great place to like have these kind of conversations. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna ask, I'm gonna inform, I'm gonna, you know, call, send an email. We'll fucking
do the thing.
See what happens.
Yep.
And here we are doing a podcast in the Jung Library in the embassy of the free minds.
Yep.
So yeah, you know, spontaneity is a great thing. And
exactly. And when you're guided by the self consciously, like you know that you're leaving space for it, then those become the best decisions that you do.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not driven by this hidden thing that you're kind of against, but somewhat constructing and maintaining. You're being guided by this part of you that wants you to individuate, to evolve, to become aware of all the parts.
Yeah.
So it's a constant process of being aware, of paying attention, of doing all the necessary works and so on. So it's definitely a work of a lifetime. As the Freemasons would say, it's like working the hard rock or something like that. There's probably a better name in English, but in Portuguese it would be like working the hard rock or something like that. Maybe I'll find it here. But this idea of, again, getting the brute, the weird, the mundane, and kind of structuring it into a better form.
And like I was just thinking about that, because, you know, doing things because you have to do things, and really like living on autopilot. Aren't we kind of also seeing that with the rise of AI? Now, like a lot of people are starting to sound like AI. They're using the kind of language that you know, that ChatGPT will use, for example. So through that, they're kind of becoming automatons themselves, and a lot of them can't even make decisions without, you know, asking AI, which
outsourcing always.
Which kind of like starts to feel like it's becoming a higher being for them. They have to consult the AI for, you know, fucking everything that they are doing.
Again, cycles and cycles. In the past age, we would outsource it to like a pastor or a priest or whatever to do something spiritual for us. If now we're talking about technology and knowledge, we'll outsource it to AI, to something else that will give us all the information. And so there's this constant idea of, again, I don't want to do the work, let someone do it for me. Guess what? The work won't be done, or at least won't be done in the measure that you need it to be done. Maybe a little bit of it, cool, but not, again, the potentiality that you have is not going to be that. The expression that I was trying to say was to work the rough ashlar. That would be what they say. So again, getting the stone and shaping it and carving it into the stone to make a monument.
That's
so again, this is a work of a lifetime. You cannot do it maybe, some people would say in a weekend. You cannot do it.
Yeah,
So-
that's for later.
Yeah.
Like the other show that I do, Across the Ponds podcast, I'm having Nick from the Occult Rejects to
Yeah, shout out to Nick.
what up, to talk about his stuff with the OTO and all, because one of my fellow podcasters and one of my fellow hosts found a video that was exposing Freemasonry, secret videos made from a hidden camera and in the temple, and those people like gaining the 33rd degree like over the weekends, like they came in on Friday and left Sunday evening being a 33rd degree Freemason. I was like, yeah, that's not how that works.
Yeah,
You got to put in the work.
Exactly.
As with everything, the stonemasons, the Freemasons, they got everything from the stonemasons, of course. Making sculptures, like it's also, that is vision. They don't see it like a block of granite and are just like, I'm just like gonna do this and
randomly.
That, they see the image in the the block of granite. All that they have to do is do the work with the literally the tools that they have to get the image out of the block of granite or whatever kind of stone it may be. Like, it's already in there, and like every great artist will tell you that it's like they haven't created anything. Like, it was already there. They just brought it out.
Same. Some musicians will say, like, I am not playing the music, like the music is being played, something like that, like the music will play them or something. So that you kind of connect. Like Bruce Lee would also talk about, I'm not really fighting, I'm just doing the kind of a dance. So the fight is happening, I'm just kind of there and letting it go. You can connect that to the idea of kind of a flow state. So
which was also the unconscious mind. Because you're doing things, like you're not really aware of what you're doing. It's autopilot, but the best kind of autopilot. Having trained jiu-jitsu for years, it just becomes it's integrated so deep. You don't have to. I mean, of course you have to actively think, otherwise you get your arm ripped off.
But for different things,
and that's like I've always said that jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, I'm getting a little injury prone, 33 years old, for Christ's sake. But like, that's always been for me, like on the mat is where I can center myself, because I am in that flow state. I have to focus on one thing in particular. So it was,
and be aware of the body and stuff. Be aware of
your body, of your body positioning. Be aware of your opponent's body and body positioning, and all
of your emotions, because if you get too angry, you might hurt him or hurt yourself because you're doing things wrongly and so on. So like
I've had that a few times, that my opponent was like being too aggressive, and that I really, like, after the roll, like, didn't want to shake their hands, but just like kick their head in. I've definitely had that once, which is another, you could say that's kind of the shadow coming out. Well, it's the aggressor coming out.
Which that's the funny thing, with the shadow, is that you will project outside what you have the opposite inside. So if someone boasts about, oh, he's the macho man and so on, inside it's going to be the opposite. They're going to be the smallest little weakling, or they think that they are, right? And I'm not saying that they are literally, but they think that, so they have to project outside the other part to kind of protect that weakling. And the same for the opposite. Like, if someone projects that they are, super weak and bad luck all the time, so on, it's because inside they think they are the greatest of them all, and so on. So they have to kind of make sure that doesn't come out, because the people cannot see it. And again, that happens over and over.
Then again, that connects to something else. Sun Tzu, Art of War. If you're in small numbers, act like you're in great numbers. If let the opponent think that you're wounded, so they'll underestimate you. like you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah,
of course,
exactly.
But that's, that's the shadow and the lights. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you can use it to your advantage, and you can use it as an ego mechanism.
Yeah, or just be controlled by it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Like
controlled by the shadow.
Yeah. Cool. That has been a great compliment. Nice. Really enjoyed it so far.
I mean, we're 10 minutes past, and I'm expecting the door to get kicked.
Yeah. I guess we can wrap it up then.
Yeah, sure. So, man, any last words? Any last words?
Yeah, maybe I'll again, or not again, because I think we did an intro with that, but I can say, if people want to find me, I'm all over social medias. So always at MattMora19. That's going to be Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, maybe some other place. I don't know. I'm not there yet, but if there is, I'm going to be there eventually. There's also my website, Kabbalah.com. That's KAABALAH.com. A lot of cool stuff there. Apps and like some of the services I do, and other things. There's also the weekly, we host spaces on X, from the group that I'm part of, the Grey Lodge, and those are super cool. A little bit advanced maybe, but you get the hang of it after you go a few times. You get, again, the archetypes, you get the idea behind it, which there's also a website for it, thetruegraylodge.com, true with a V, so truth. We have all the stuff uploaded there afterwards, but yeah, live, they are all Fridays. So
awesome. I'll make sure that, of course, all those links are in the description box.
Thank you.
Below the video, or in the description of whatever podcasting platform you were listening. This was a great conversation. Again, I want to thank the Embassy of the Free Mind for letting us use the Jung Library to record this podcast. This has been quite a milestone in the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. Like, this is the first one in person. Yeah, first of all,
super nice,
and the very first one that I'm doing like somewhere else, like on location. So that is absolutely amazing. So thank you very much for that. If you want to find out more about the Greyhorn Pagans, about what we do on the Greyhorn Pagans podcast, right? The Greyhorn Pagans, go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com, or find us on the socials. I've kind of limited to the most basic ones. Find us on Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter. Of those, I'm most active on Telegram and Instagram. So if you want to contact me through social media, go there, or email us at greyhornpagans@protonmail.com. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on all your favorite platforms, and on YouTube, Rumble. We are also on Odyssey, but I'm really neglecting that, unfortunately. If you want to support me, you want to support my work, you want to support the work that we do with the Greyhorn Pagans, become a channel member. We have a few different tiers that you can subscribe to with, all the goodies, of course, or become a Patreon on patreon.com/Greyhorn Pagans, where we have 2 different tiers, and our esoteric book club, where we are currently still reading Night Side of the Runes by someone whose name escapes me at the moment. But yeah, Night Side of the Runes, incredibly interesting. When I kind of read about that, asked him, hey, this reminds me of Kabbalah. And
I can see it. I mean, I'm biased, what can I say?
Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe to Matt. Make sure to subscribe to me, to all of us. And we will see you all next time. We'll catch you all next time on another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast.
See ya.
This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access. And for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast, find us on www.greyhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you